The Miami Heat may not land Kevin Durant because the Phoenix Suns do not like their offer. They also don't like the offers between the Houston Rockets and the San Antonio Spurs. Is it time for the Miami Heat to pivot to another option? Maybe Jonathan Kuminga? Let's talk about it, Heat Nation. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe as we push for 7,000 subscribers. Click that notification bell to get all my updates. Now that we got that out the way, you know what time it is. Hit that intro.
That is enough said.
Happy Taco Tuesday, Heat Nation. Your boy Ernest here. Back with another Miami Heat Talk video. Hope you guys are having a great day so far, living your best life. Please join me now as we go on another Miami Heat Talk adventure because I got a lot of updates to give you guys. First and foremost, the Kevin Durant update. I did briefly touch on it on a few shorts yesterday, but I wanted to talk about it in full detail in today's episode. Now, it was reported yesterday by Barry Jackson, and for those of you who don't know, Barry Jackson is one of the top reporters down here in South Florida, works with the Miami Heat. So when he reports something, we got to pay attention. He did report that the Phoenix Suns do not like the Miami Heat's current offer. It was reported by John Gambadino, who is Arizona State's talk show radio host, who reiterated to him that it is unlikely that the Heat will get Kevin Durant with their current offer. So what most likely that means is the Miami Heat are probably not willing to give up Kel'el Ware, because we know that the Phoenix Suns demanded a package that involved Kel'el Ware. Phoenix want a center, but the Miami Heat have found their diamond, their 7-foot 3-and-D player to play alongside Bam Adebayo. This is something that we've been wanting for years now. And now that we finally got it, Phoenix just wants us to give it up for a guy who's going to turn 37, who may not be with us in the long haul. That could bite us in the ass, because what if Kel'el breaks out and turns into a potential all-star? You know, he's still young. He's only 20 years old. You have a lot of time with Kel'el Ware. Now, what did I originally say with this whole Kevin Durant thing? The reason why I was ready to trade for Kevin Durant is because I felt that with Giannis Antetokounmpo out there with, you know, his potential trade request from Milwaukee, a lot of these teams would wait for Giannis and the Heat can pivot and get Durant for a pretty decent offer. An offer combining Andrew Wiggins, Duncan Robinson, or Terry Rozier, maybe Nikola Jovic or Jaime Jaquez in the 20th pick. I've said multiple times that if that's the offer, I'm cool with it. But if Phoenix wants future first-round draft picks, Kel'el Ware, Andrew Wiggins, Duncan Robinson, and then, you know, to throw in Nikola Jovic, then no, that's way too much. As much as I like Kevin Durant, as much as I think he can help the Miami Heat, he can help Tyler Hero be that perfect option next to him, it's just not worth it if you have to give up the entire farm. That's a trade that you make for a guy like a Giannis Antetokounmpo or something like that. A guy who's 30 years old, where you can get a lot of productivity on. For Kevin Durant, it can be a 1-year rental. That was another reason why I was cool with it. But apparently, now that Kevin Durant is seeking this trade to Miami, Houston, or San Antonio, it needs to come with a 2-year extension worth anywhere from $112 to $120 million. So now you're going to be stuck with Kevin Durant for 2 more years, paying him $60 million each season. What if he gets injured? So now this is another risk you're taking. So I understand why the Miami Heat wouldn't want to give up the entire farm. If you're trading for Kevin Durant, especially giving him that extension, you want to put him around Bam Adebayo, Kel'el Ware, and Tyler Hero. You don't want to give up one of those guys for him. So I completely understand that, and I completely agree with that. Now, another report came out from the New York Times that indicated what league sources said is that the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Heat have not come forward with offers for Durant compelling enough to get the Suns to bite, which means they will continue to look at the market for a deal that suits them. The Rockets and Suns have had meaningful discussions about a deal, team sources said. Houston has a firm offer on the table, but Phoenix, to the point, has been seriously underwhelmed by it. The Spurs, league sources say, have been conservative in their pursuit for Durant. So it doesn't seem like the 3 teams that Kevin Durant wants to sign an extension for are giving big offers, because they all know what comes with it. They know that if they trade for Kevin Durant, he's going to come with that 2-year extension. And why are you going to do that for a guy who's going to be 37 years old and you have to give up a bunch of assets for? Now, one report that came out after that is that the Phoenix Suns are still hopeful that Kevin Durant might warm to the Minnesota Timberwolves possibility. And that's honestly because I think Minnesota is probably giving Phoenix the best offer. But Minnesota may be hesitant because Kevin Durant doesn't want to sign an extension. I reported yesterday there were 3 teams Durant wanted to sign an extension with: the Rockets, the Spurs, and the Heat. But 3 teams that Phoenix were talking to was Houston, Miami, and Minnesota. Minnesota's a dark horse. Toronto's a dark horse with the 9th pick. The Clippers are a dark horse. These are 3 teams that Brian Windhorst also mentioned. And it was also reported, you guys, that Phoenix doesn't necessarily have to send Kevin Durant to one of the teams he wants. They're working with him to find the best suitor, but they're going to get the best package available for them. So if Miami, San Antonio, and Houston are not giving their best offers, and Minnesota is coming with something like a Dante DiVincenzo, a Rudy Gobert, and one of their first-round draft picks, I wouldn't be surprised if Phoenix does that trade. Phoenix can send Kevin Durant to Minnesota. Minnesota can look at it as a 1-year rental, kind of like Kawhi Leonard in 2018 with the Toronto Raptors. So it can happen. A dark horse team can trade for Durant, and then Miami Heat would be out of it. Now, it's like I've said, you guys, this is kind of a blessing and a curse. Heat fans I've really been seeing it kind of going 50-50. You know, they're Heat fans that are like, yeah, we're not going to give up Kel'el Ware for Kevin Durant. For Giannis, yeah. I'm sure we can all agree with that. If you're doing a trade with Milwaukee and they want Giannis, Jovic, you know, the 3 first-round draft picks, Andrew Wiggins, yeah, then I would do that for Giannis. Because you put Giannis next to Bam in the front court, doesn't matter if Bam is playing center, he's with Giannis. But if you're trading for Kevin Durant, it's different. You want to keep Kel'el Ware. Huge difference. And I'm sure a lot of Heat fans would agree with me on that. Now, one thing that was reported yesterday that I want to talk about is a potential option where the Miami Heat can pivot to another player. We've mentioned this name before in the middle of the season, but it hasn't been mentioned in the offseason. So I'm going to talk about Jonathan Kuminga. And I'm going to read a report that was presented by Hoops Hype. It says Jonathan Kuminga is looking for an expanded and consistent role moving forward. The Chicago Bulls and Miami Heat are 2 teams to monitor as potential sign-and trade candidates for Kuminga, league sources told Hoop Heights. With that in mind, the Warriors have also not ruled out the possibility of retaining Kuminga. So, Jonathan Kuminga, you guys, is due for an extension. He's seeking the 5-year, $224 million extension, and Golden State offered him a 5-year, $150 million extension, which he declined. So he's looking for the max number. And I mean, he had a pretty solid season. He's had a solid 2 years. Last season, he only played 47 games, but he averaged about 15 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2 assists, 45% from the field, 30% from the three-point line, 66% from the foul line. Not so great. But he's not been known as a great free throw shooter. Now, he gives you wing presence. You know, he can play the small forward, power forward position. It's not really the best fit with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler out there, even though when Steph Curry was injured, the last few games in the playoffs against the Timberwolves, he had great games. He had a 30-point game in Game 3. He had a 23-point game in Game 4, a 26-point game in Game 5. So he was consistent when Steph Curry was out. He is looking for a more expanded role, so I understand why he may not see Golden State as the best fit, having Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, even though Golden State can look at Jonathan Kuminga as their potential future by giving him an extension, but a sign-and trade might be possible. Now, here's the thing. Jonathan Kuminga being 22 years old, yeah, he's a nice fit. Probably can be a better version of Andrew Wiggins. But if you're doing a sign-in trade for a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, you're not going for it now. You're going with the full youth movement with Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, and Jonathan Kuminga as your top 3 paid players. They can compete. They can be a top 6 team if they're grit and they fight hard and there's no injuries. Staying with Kel'el Ware. But what do you give up for a Jonathan Kuminga? Now, you did a deal with the Golden State Warriors midseason for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy made it so bad that you weren't able to get Jonathan Kuminga because that's what Miami was trying to get. But Jimmy brought his value so down they couldn't get him. So now you do another trade with Jonathan Kuminga. What are you giving? Are you sending Andrew Wiggins back? You don't want to send Kel'el Ware. You're putting yourself in the same hole with Kevin Durant. So that's why I think a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade won't really work. I don't think Golden State is going to look at any of our players besides our young great assets like Kel'el Ware, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez. I'd be willing for Jovic and Jaquez, but not Kel'el Ware, and that'll put us in the same position that we're at now. So I don't think a Jonathan Kuminga Miami Heat is likely. So the Heat may have to pivot to another free agent, another disgruntled player, maybe a Zion Williamson, maybe DeMar DeRozan if you're able to do Terry Rozier and a future second-round pick. But one thing I will say, if you lose out on the Kevin Durant sweepstakes and you can't get any of these players, maybe it's time to pivot. Maybe instead of running it back, try to do what Houston and Oklahoma is doing by collecting as much draft capital as you can. See what the value out there is for a Bam Adebayo. I love Bam. I don't want to trade him. But if you're not getting a player to put next to Bam and Tyler, what the hell are we doing? See if San Antonio is willing to give up the 2nd and the 14th pick with a Stephon Castle. See if you're able to get a top 10 pick in the draft. Tyler Hero can be a guy that you build upon now with a retooling team that's kind of rebuilding. It doesn't matter if you have a bad 2026 season. We hold our first round pick. And we can potentially have over $80 million of cap space into the 2026 offseason. So the Heat, if they can't be desperate, if you can't make a trade for a player, look to pivot. Let me know what you think in the comments, Heat Nation. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe as we push for 7,000 subscribers. Appreciate you guys' support. Until next time, your boy Ernest out. And that is enough said. Peep the Eddie Guerrero shirt. Viva la raza.